He was one of America's most powerful men, feared by enemies, admired by millions, and trusted by the workers who built the nation. Then, one quiet afternoon in 1975, Jimmy Hoffa walked into a Detroit restaurant and vanished. No witnesses, no body, no goodbye. Before Jimmy Hoffa disappeared, he was more than just a name, he was a legend. In the world of labor unions, Hoffa was a storm, a fighter who refused to back down. He grew up poor, the son of a coal miner who died when Jimmy was just 7. Life taught him to survive, to fight for what he wanted. By his 20s, Hoffa was already organizing workers, leading strikes, and challenging the biggest corporations in America. In the 1930s, working for truckers was dangerous. Long hours, no safety, and little pay. But Hoffa had something others didn't: courage. He faced company guards, corrupt bosses, and even police batons to demand fair treatment for his people. He wasn't a man who feared blood or threats. He once told a group of truckers, "If you're scared, go home. If you want change, stand with me." And they did. Thousands joined his cause. And before long, Hoffa became the rising star of the Teamsters Union, the most powerful labor force in the country. But power never comes alone. With his growing influence came darker alliances. Hoffa started working with people who could get things done, the mob. They controlled the streets, and he controlled the workers. Together, they built an empire that could shake politicians and bend businessmen to their will. Trucks moved across the nation carrying food, fuel, and steel, all under Hoffa's control. Even presidents feared upsetting the Teamsters. Yet, beneath the surface of his success, something sinister brewed. Hoffa's deals with mob bosses gave him fast results but tied him to dangerous men. He funded their projects. They funded his strikes. A perfect exchange that worked for years. But everyone knew one thing: the mafia never forgets, and they never forgive betrayal. By the 1960s, Hoffa was both loved and hated. To workers, he was a hero, the man who gave them fair pay, job security, and pride. To the government, he was a threat, a man who could bring the country's economy to its knees. FBI agents shadowed him, politicians condemned him, journalists called him the most powerful man outside government. Still, Hoffa believed he was untouchable. He once said, "I'll never be taken down by any man. I built this empire with my bare hands." But he was wrong. Behind his back, alliances were shifting, and enemies were growing stronger. Inside the mafia circles, whispers began to spread. Hoffa had become a liability. As the sun set on his reign, the walls around him began to close. Federal agents were closing in on his union deals. Rival leaders were eyeing his seat, and the mob wanted more control over Teamster money. Hoffa had built an empire from nothing, but now, that empire was turning against him. Couldn't see it yet, but every friend he trusted was starting to look like a possible traitor. Every phone call, every meeting, every handshake, a test of loyalty. And as Hoffa prepared for his final showdown, no one, not even he, could predict how it would end. By the early 1970s, Jimmy Hoffa was a man surrounded by ghosts of deals, debts, and dangerous friends. After years of power, his empire began to crumble under the weight of investigations and betrayals. The FBI had been watching him for over a decade, determined to expose the link between the Teamsters and organized crime. Hoffa had always been clever, but even clever men can't outrun the law forever. In 1967, Hoffa's world finally cracked. He was convicted of jury tampering, fraud, and conspiracy, a devastating blow for a man who once believed he ruled the working class. His empire was ripped from his hands, and he was sent to prison. Yet, even behind bars, Hoffa's voice echoed through the nation. His followers never forgot him. They saw him as a fighter who'd been silenced by corrupt politicians and corporate greed. But while Hoffa sat in a cell, others were moving in. The new Teamsters leadership, especially Frank Fitzsimmons, once Hoffa's right-hand man, took over and started forming closer ties with the mafia. Hoffa had created the system, but now he was being pushed out of it. Every letter, every message from outside the prison reminded him that his old friends were getting rich off the empire he built. Then came a surprise. In 1971, President Richard Nixon commuted Hoffa's sentence, freeing him from prison. But there was a catch. The deal stated he couldn't be involved in union activities until 1980. For Hoffa, that was like taking away his identity. The Teamsters were his life. He had fought, bled, and even gone to prison for them. He was expected to stay silent and fade away. That wasn't going to happen. A once-free Hoffa started plotting his return. He made public speeches, called old allies, and met quietly with union figures. But the world had changed while he was gone. The mob had become stronger, and they preferred Fitzsimmons, someone who didn't ask questions. Hoffa, on the other hand, was stubborn and proud. He wanted his seat back, even if it meant challenging the very men who once protected him. Soon, warnings began to surface. His old associates told him to stop pushing. "Jimmy, let it go," they said. "You're stirring the wrong pot," but Hoffa couldn't let it go. To him, stepping back was equal to admitting defeat. He didn't fear the mob. He believed they still respected him. After all, he'd helped many of them make millions through Teamster pension funds. But respect in the underworld has an expiration date, and Hoffa's was running out. By the summer of 1975, Hoffa's frustration reached its peak. He was calling meetings, making threats, and planning a comeback that would shake the union to its core. He scheduled one crucial lunch with two powerful men, Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone and Anthony Tony Pro Provenzano, both known mob figures. Hoffa believed it was a peace meeting, a way to settle things and reclaim his position. But what Hoffa didn't know was that this meeting might be his last. He told his family he was going to the Machu's Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. He left his house around 2 p.m. on July 30th, 1975, dressed neatly in a dark suit holding his trademark confidence. He was sure he'd come back victorious, yet as the clock ticked past 3 p.m., something strange happened. No one showed up to meet him. He waited, growing impatient. Witnesses saw him pacing outside the restaurant, checking his watch and making phone calls. Then, a car pulled up and Hoffa got in. That was the last time anyone ever saw Jimmy Hoffa alive. July 30th, 1975, a warm Thursday afternoon that began like any other but would end in one of America's greatest mysteries. Jimmy Hoffa, once one of the most powerful men in the nation, left his house at around 2:00 p.m., expecting to meet two familiar faces, Anthony Tony Pro Provenzano and Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone. He told his wife Josephine that he was heading to the Machu's Red Fox restaurant near Detroit's Bloomfield Township. He even joked that if the men didn't show up, he'd give them a piece of his mind. By 2:30 p.m., Hoffa was at the restaurant parking lot. Witnesses saw him standing near his car, a green 1974 Mercury Marquise. He looked restless, pacing back and forth, checking his watch. Hoffa was never a man to wait patiently. He called his wife around 2:45, complaining that the men were late. "I've been stood up," he said. That was the last confirmed contact anyone had with him. Then, somewhere between 2:45 and 3:30 p.m., Hoffa vanished. Witnesses later reported seeing Hoffa getting into a maroon 1975 Mercury Marquis broom with 3 men inside. No one knew who they were. The car rolled out of the parking lot and disappeared into the streets of suburban Detroit. From that moment on, Hoffa simply ceased to exist. No phone calls, no sightings, no trace. When Hoffa didn't return home that evening, his family grew worried. His wife tried calling friends, union members, even the police, but no one had heard from him. By midnight, fear turned into panic. The next morning, Hoffa's son, James P. Hoffa, found his father's car still parked at the restaurant lot, doors unlocked, no signs of struggle, the keys still inside. It looked as if Hoffa had stepped out for a quick errand and never came back. The FBI immediately launched an investigation. Within days, the restaurant became the center of a media storm. Reporters crowded the parking lot, asking the same question over and over. "Where's Jimmy Hoffa?" Agents interviewed everyone who might have known something. Restaurant workers, truck drivers, Teamsters officials, mob informants. Some claimed Hoffa had been tricked into a fake meeting. Others said he was taken to a nearby house and killed within hours. But without a body, no one could prove anything. Rumors exploded. One theory claimed Hoffa's body was buried under Giant Stadium in New Jersey. Another said he was dumped in a Detroit steel drum, crushed, and shipped overseas. Some believed his remains were cremated in a mob-controlled funeral home. Every time a tip came in, the FBI dug fields, backyards, even airport runways, but found nothing. The lack of evidence made the mystery even darker. There were no fingerprints, no blood, no witnesses brave enough to talk. It was as if Hoffa had been erased from existence. The mob had a way of making people vanish, but this was different. This was too clean, too perfect. Behind closed doors, FBI agents quietly admitted that Hoffa's death had likely been ordered by people he once trusted. They believed he had been lured to the meeting, killed almost immediately, and his body disposed of in a way that ensured it would never be found. But the why still haunted everyone. Had Hoffa been silenced because he threatened to expose mob secrets? Was it a warning to anyone else trying to challenge their power? Or was someone higher up, someone in politics or business, afraid of what Hoffa might reveal? In a single afternoon, a man who once ruled millions vanished without leaving a shadow. The legend of Jimmy Hoffa became not just a crime story, but a question that still chills investigators to this day. How can someone so powerful? As days turned into weeks after Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance, the nation's curiosity transformed into obsession.
Wow.
Newspapers across America ran the same burning headline, "Where is Jimmy Hoffa?" Television anchors replayed the story night after night, while FBI agents followed hundreds of leads that led nowhere. Everyone had a theory, but no one had proof. The most common belief was simple. The mob killed him. Hoffa had made too many enemies. It borrowed money from the mob, funneled pension funds into their projects, and now wanted to take back control of the Teamsters. Something the mafia wouldn't allow. The underworld thrives on loyalty, and Hoffa's arrogance was seen as betrayal. He had openly threatened to expose mob connections inside the Union. For men who live by silence, that was unforgivable. FBI informants whispered that the hit was ordered by Tony Provenzano, a mobster Hoffa once called a friend. The two had a violent history. Once during Hoffa's prison days, Tony Pro allegedly threatened to kill him. When Hoffa tried to negotiate peace after his release, Provenzano refused to meet. Yet the supposed meeting Hoffa was lured to on July 30th had Tony Pro's name all over it. Still, nothing about the disappearance felt ordinary. Most mob killings left a body, a message, a warning. Hoffa's case left nothing. It was as though the killers wanted him not just dead but erased. Then there was another theory, one that went beyond the mob. Some investigators believed that Hoffa knew too much about government deals, secret loans, and political connections that could destroy powerful people. He had helped fund major construction projects and had close ties to political figures. What if his disappearance wasn't just a mob hit, but a cover-up involving powerful hands from Washington to Las Vegas? In 1976, 1 year after Hoffa vanished, the FBI created a special task force named Hoffex. It gathered evidence, interviewed mob bosses, and tracked financial records. Dozens of suspects were named, but not one was charged. Witnesses who came close to talking suddenly went silent or vanished themselves. Those who did speak claimed they didn't remember or weren't there. Fear ran deep. No one wanted to be the next to disappear. Meanwhile, Hoffa's family refused to give up. His wife Josephine grew old waiting for answers, visiting the FBI every year, asking the same question, "Have you found him yet?" His son, James P. Hoffa, followed in his father's footsteps, later becoming the president of the Teamsters himself. But even he admitted that the truth about his father's fate might never be known. Years later, mob insiders gave cryptic confessions. One claimed Hoffa's body was cremated in a Detroit funeral home controlled by the mafia. Another swore he was buried under a horse farm owned by a mob boss. In 2003, the FBI dug up a Michigan field after a tip from a mobster. Nothing. In 2012, they searched under a driveway in Roseville. Still nothing. Even as late as 2021, agents searched a landfill in New Jersey, hoping technology might finally reveal the truth. Every time, they found only dirt and disappointment. But what makes Hoffa's case truly haunting is not just his disappearance, it's the silence that followed. Those who knew the truth never spoke. Those who might have talked died before they could. The code of the underworld omerta ensured that Jimmy Hoffa's story would stay buried forever. In the end, America was left with whispers, rumors, and one terrifying realization: when power, money, and loyalty collide, even the most famous man in the country can vanish without a trace.